Sometimes people ask me whether I think their donors would be willing to fund X, Y, or Z project. And they usually ask because somebody along the way told them that projects like roof maintenance and buying a new boiler for the church are just not sexy projects that people are willing to fund. In my experience, I've had just as much success fixing leaky roofs as I've had building state-of-the-art science labs. So I don't know that a project necessarily has to be a lot of wow and glitz and glamour. I think, from my perspective, simply ask for what you need, and don't invent projects just because you've second-guessed what you think donors might be willing to support. I think also there is great flexibility in what people will fund, so don't be afraid to tell them precisely what you need. The bottom line, though, is that whatever you choose to fund, I think it will be most successful if it solves a real need, a real issue that's impacting your core mission. Let me give you an example. I once had a call from a client, and I asked them what they needed. They said they wanted to put up a second gymnasium for a Catholic high school. And when I investigated a little bit further, I discovered that, yeah, they probably could use a second gym, but meanwhile, the teachers were horribly underpaid, the enrollment was declining, and there were several other issues in the school that really weren't being addressed. So to my way of thinking, when I go to do a capital campaign, I first try and put myself in the shoes of the prospective donor. If I was a graduate of that particular high school, and you came and asked me for money for a second gym, when all these other issues were being totally unaddressed, even if you needed that gym and I felt great about sports, I'm not so sure I would make my best gift, to that particular school for fear of wondering whether the school was going to be in existence 20 years from now because these other issues weren't being addressed. So my point is, whatever the campaign is for, as long as it's addressing the fundamental needs and issues that you need to address, doesn't matter what it is. I think as long as it meets those core needs, you can be successful with that. Let me give you another example. I had a call from a Catholic church that wanted to raise $7 million to do some pretty significant remodeling to their parish, to the parish church. And I asked them, I said, even if you could raise $7 million, let me ask you this question. If you had $7 million in the bank today, is this how you would choose to spend it? I said to the pastor, would you choose to spend all of that $7 million on remodeling the church? Are there no other needs anywhere in the parish? And what I discovered was they wanted to raise $7 million to remodel the church, but meanwhile, some of their best families were leaving and going off to the Protestant megachurch because the Protestant megachurch had an incredible youth ministry program, whereas the Catholics had none. You see what I'm saying? It's like, I think when we choose the projects for our capital campaign, we need to think deeply about what are the very basic drivers of our mission. So the takeaway here is ask for what you need and make sure that whatever you're asking for is going to have a real impact on the fulfillment of your mission. And then one final piece of advice, sometimes when you go out to visit with a major gift prospect, you'll have a bit of small talk prior to getting down to business, right? And sometimes in the course of that small talk, the major gift donor will make an offhand comment about, wouldn't it be wonderful to have this or that, right? And it's just an offhand comment. They haven't even given it much thought. They're just kind of brainstorming, right? But what I've seen happen sometimes is because it's Mr. or Mrs. Big that made that offhand comment, all of a sudden the school or the church decides that they need to do this or that so that they've got something for Mr. Big to fund. And that's my way of thinking, is the tail wagging the dog. I'm perfectly comfortable telling somebody who makes an offhand comment that we should be doing X, Y, or Z. If it doesn't fit in to the strategic direction that the organization needs to go, I've got no problem telling the person, you know, that's a good idea, but here's what we really need, and here's why. And if you have that justification for what you really need and why, you'd be surprised at the degree to which people, even people with millions of dollars, will acquiesce and will come along with you so that you truly do get your most important needs met.